November 11, 1918, the armistice was signed and the Great War was over. The winners were United Kingdom, France, United States of America, Japan, and Italy. The losers were Germany, Austro-Hungarian Empire, Ottoman Empire. Russia withdrew from the war 1917 because of Bolshevik Revolution. Even though the war was over, there were a lot of problems left to build the long-lasting peace in the world. On January 8, 1919, Woodrow Wilson, the President of the United States of America, proposed 14 points to build long-lasting peace in the world on the State of Union address before the Congress. The two most important proposals were self-determination and forming the League of Nations. Self-determination meant that every country has its own right to form its own government. Representatives of 37 nations gathered in Paris on January 18, 1919, to discuss about the world peace. However, they are more interested in the national interest rather than the peace of the world. Wilson's self-determination brought tremendous attention to the independent activists of the countries that were colonized by the Western power and Japan in Asia. Yeonhyang was the leader of the many Korean independent activists in Shanghai in China in 1918. He heard that Charles Crane was coming to Shanghai to speak about Wilson's 14 points for the world peace that would be the principles of Paris peace negotiations. He was a wealthy American businessman who helped 1912 Wilson's presidential election campaign, and Wilson appointed him as an ambassador to promote his 14 points for the world peace, and he was traveling Japan and China. Yeonhyang was able to attend his welcoming luncheon party and listen to his speech. He spoke about self-determination, that the minor countries that were oppressed could be independent, and he encouraged China to send her delegation to Paris conference. And Yeonhyang was able to meet him after the speech, and he asked him, what if Koreans send a delegation to Paris Peace Conference? And he told him there are very little chance that Korean independence was considered in the conference, but sending the delegation and speak about it, it should be okay, and he was willing to help them. Being encouraged by him, Yeonhyang drafted a letter forwarded to Woodrow Wilson that why Korea needed independence, and accused Japan of mistreating Korean people. The letter was given to Charles Crane, but it never been delivered to Woodrow Wilson, and it was found recently in the Columbia University Library. Yeonhyang and the New Korea Youth Party decided to send a delegation to Paris Peace Conference, and he picked Kim Kyu-sik as a delegate to Paris, who was educated in America and fluent in English. When talking about the plans in Paris, Kim Kyu-sik suggested that Korean people had to do something to show the world how much Korean people wanted to be independent. Yeon thought that it was an excellent idea, and he immediately started to organize the movement, later known to be March 1st movement in Korea. There were many emotionally charged Korean young men who were eager to do something about Korean independence. And they joined New Korea Youth Party that were organized by Yeo Hoon-young. Yeo Hoon-young began to send the members of the party to Siberia, Manchuria, Korea, and Japan. And they explained to the people there who were actively involved in Korea independence movement about the self-determination and necessity of massive demonstration against Japanese rule. Lee Kwang-soo was the famous writer at the time. He went to Japan and met the students who were studying in Japan, and he explained to them about self-determination and the Paris Peace Conference. And they decided to declare the independence, and he wrote the Independence Manifesto. On February 8th, 1919, they gathered at the YMCA in Tokyo and read the Declaration of Independence, and it became the impetus to March 1st movement in Korea. Since the annexation of Korea by Japan in 1910, Japanese applied military type of oppression upon Koreans. And the anger of Koreans against Japanese had been growing. And on January of 1919, Go-jong died. And there had been a deep suspicion that Japanese conspired to kill him. And rumors were spreading amongst Koreans, and the momentum for the massive demonstration or the riot had been growing. March 1st, 1919, 33 leaders of Korean people at the time gathered at Taewagwan. That was the most famous restaurant in Seoul. And the demonstrators flocked into the Tapgol Park, and at both places the Declaration of Independence were read. The Declaration of Independence was newly adopted by 33 leaders. It is different from the one that Lee Kwang-soo wrote at the February 8th Declaration of Independence in Japan. The protest propagated from Seoul to the cities in the north down to south, and about 2 million people participated in the protest, and 45,000 people were arrested and 7,500 were dead. Foreign news media reported favorably for Koreans. For example, the AP reported that the Declaration of Independence expressed the voice of 20 million Korean people very well, based on justice and humanity. Even though the movement failed to change the mind of a major power of the world, but Japanese changed their policy. They stopped the military type of ruling, and they instituted a more civilized cultural way of governance. Kim Kyu-shik, who went to Paris to attend the peace conference, And he checked into the hotel, and he immediately started to write a letter and make a pamphlet asking for Korean independence and accusing Japan of oppressing Korean people. But there was no response. All he got was that we are in receipt of your letter. That was it. Korea did not exist. Considering Japan being one of five major powers that controls the meeting, the Korea just belonged to Japan. Gyushik heard about March 1st movement in Korea a month later, and no one told him. It meant no one around him in France knew about the March 1st movement in Korea. Roh Won-young and the members of New Korea Youth Party felt that Korea needs something like a de facto government that represents Korean people to deal with international matters leading to Korean independence in the future. April 10, 1919, 1,000 Korean nationals in Shanghai and the members of New Korea Youth Party got together, formed the cabinet and made up the parliament, and declared the Provisional Government of Republic of Korea on April 13, 1919. The Provisional Government was not immune to the influence of the communism from the Soviets and of capitalism from European countries in America. It already showed signs of division. The cabinet was the mixture of the socialist, communist, nationalist, and the supporters of Euro-American capitalism.